Shabbat Shalom, my friends. That's, of course, our usual greeting week after week. But there are other greetings uniquely appropriate for this massively significant sacred day. We could say, Ketiva Tova, at least especially during Rosh Hashanah. May you be inscribed in the book of life for a good year, or Gemar Tov. May things go well for you in the year that is now beginning. Or Chatima Tova, and that's especially used near the end of Yom Kippur when we express the wish that we will, each of us, be sealed, Chatima, that will be sealed in the book of life for a good year. And of course there is the well-known wish, Tzom Kal, say that easily, Tzom Kal, have an easy fast. Yom Kippur is called Shabbat Shabbaton, the Sabbath of Sabbaths. The Sabbath of Sabbaths. And what happens when the Sabbath of Sabbaths occurs on a Sabbath? Shabbat Shabbaton on a Shabbat. Well, that's incredibly powerful. A day rich with depth, rich with significance. For students of Torah, I have to admit to you, this is also a very confusing period. This past week, we read the very last chapters of the book of Deuteronomy, the end of the Torah, Nitzavim Vayelech. Fine, okay. So this week, finished last week, this week we begin Bereshit, Genesis, right? No, not exactly. Just hang on for the ride. The special reading for Yom Kippur takes precedence over the regular Shabbat Sedra. Okay, fine. But then you assume that this week we take a time out, we read special readings. Next week we'll go right into Genesis, right? Except that a week from this Shabbat, next Shabbat is in the middle of the festival of Sukkot. And guess what? Sukkot has its own unique Torah readings. No Bereshit yet. As a matter of fact, it won't be until October 14th that we will get to Genesis, Bereshit, because by then we will have passed through Simchat Torah, that incredibly wonderful celebration, the rejoicing of the Torah. We finish the Torah, we begin again, October 14th, we'll be able to get to Bereshit. It's confusing. But with all of these changes, at least we can take some comfort from the fact that on this Shabbat, Yom Kippur, Shabbat of the Shabbat Shabbaton, congregations all over the world will share in reading the very same Torah portions. We just love the idea that Jews everywhere, when they come into shul for whatever occasion, Shabbat, Yom Tov, we all are reading all across the world the very same Torah portions, right? It is very unifying. As a matter of fact, I guess it's almost mystical. It's unifying, it's mystical, and it's wrong. Among the significant changes that Reformed Jews made since the early 19th century to our standard liturgy, changes that have included making our prayer books gender sensitive, gender inclusive, eliminating the musaf, the additional service from Shabbat and festival worship, other things as well. Reformed Jews have selected Torah readings for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which are not the traditional readings. So the Torah portions read on this Shabbat, which is a Shabbat Shabbaton, those are not the same Torah readings that most Reformed congregants will be hearing in their synagogues. What's going on? The traditional readings on Yom Kippur come mainly from Leviticus chapter 16, in which we hear about all the rules and regulations regarding the Yom Kippur sacrifices in the ancient temples in Jerusalem. The focus is on the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, upon his sacrificial acts, his personal confessions, his confessions for the people, and that ancient practice of selecting an Ez Lazazel, a scapegoat, to carry the people's sins out into the wilderness. Watch out, poor Mr. Scapegoat, because the goat just doesn't go out into the wilderness. It's pushed off a cliff. It dies. And with the death of that goat, then the sins of the people are thereby lifted. But in most Reformed congregations, we instead find ourselves reading from Deuteronomy 29 and 30. Readings from that, by the way, very same Sedra Nitzavim that we read just last week. Let me assure you, this wasn't purely a cosmetic change. Something very profound is happening here. As a matter of fact, a whole bunch of very profound things. This shift in Torah readings is an overt rejection of the notion of the priestly sacrificial system. It's a big deal. Reformed Jews are stating with these changes that we no longer hold up the tripartite system of Kohen, Levi, Yisrael as a functional way of looking at the Jewish people. No matter what our particular family lineage, Reformed congregations usually do not provide aliyot for the Kohen and for the Levi. And we certainly do not idealize the notion of a Kohen Gadol choosing and then sending out into the wilderness a scapegoat to die so as to cleanse us from our sins and of our guilt. But then what makes these particular selections from Deuteronomy, those we do generally read, so much more attractive? Well, it starts first of all with egalitarianism. Atem nitzavim hayom. You are standing this day before God. You. Not just the high priest. Not just the men. Not just the adults. Not just the native-born Jews. All of you. All of us. And not just those people who stood at Mount Sinai and said, Naseh v'nishma, and we will take the Torah from God. And not just the generation of those who actually went into the promised land 40 years later. All of us are standing before God. Atem nitzavim hayom lifnei Adonai Elohechem. The judgments of this day apply to each of us individually and to all of us collectively. We stand shechem echad, shoulder to shoulder, before our God. And I have to admit to you, I find this to be a breathtaking concept. And there's more. V'lo rechokahi. The Deuteronomy text tells us, don't be frightened by the challenge of measuring up to all of the Torah's demands. Yes, we will struggle. Yes, we will stumble and we will fall. The reality, that particular reality, is fundamental to the entire work of Yom Kippur Day. But the Torah is emphatically intended to be a human document. Torah is within our reach. We don't need someone else to give it to us, to tell us what it means. We can grasp that Torah. We can grasp it physically. We can grasp it spiritually. We can take it into our own hearts. And more. Lo rechokahi. The Torah is not too distant from us. We can actually live Torah through the deeds of our own hands, our own lives. We can actually live Torah through the understandings of our own hearts. What a powerful set of messages. One last reason for this intentional exchange of Torah selections. I have set before you this day life and good, death and evil. Choose life. We are expected to exercise our free will to choose good and not evil, to choose life and not death, to stand before God as free people. Choose life, therefore, that you and your descendants may live. No more scapegoats. My friends, no more scapegoats. No more high priests. But each of us individually and all of us collectively are expected to make the choices that will shape our own destiny. Every one of us, regardless of gender or station, reaching for a Torah that is in fact within our grasp, and by doing so to choose life, and therefore to choose blessing. Wow. So, Chatima Tova. May we be sealed in the book of life for a good year. May we find in the Torah a beacon to guide us through our days. May we choose life. And by choosing life, may we be rewarded with blessings. Have a great 5778, my friends. See you next week and for many weeks to come. And please, you know this, please hit share. Be well.